Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
That ball was in his chest, right in his chest, perfectly placed, perfectly timed. A tight window throw on the goal line that required every ounce of the arm talent, the trust, and the football IQ that made Shedeur Sanders one of the most talked about quarterback prospects in years. And Concepcion tried to hurdle it instead of catch it. I'm Dre Fiver from Dre Reports, and I need you to understand something before we go any further today. The story being told about Shedeur Sanders at Browns OTAs is not the story that the footage actually tells. The media wants you to see a messy, ugly, accidental touchdown and use it as evidence that the kid isn't ready. But when you slow it down, when you zoom in, when you actually look at where that football landed, the evidence tells a completely different story. And today, we are going to tell it properly. Let's establish the facts first, because facts matter and receipts matter. And in the current Cleveland Browns media environment, you absolutely cannot afford to let narratives run unchecked. Shedeur Sanders, during Week 2 of Browns OTAs, threw a pass intended for first-round wide receiver Concepcion in the red zone. The ball hit Concepcion in the chest, not off target, not behind him, not over his head, not underthrown, not sailing wide. In his chest. What happened next is that Concepcion, rather than securing the football with his hands the way any NFL receiver at any level is coached to do from the time they first put on a uniform, tried to body catch it, tried to cradle it into his torso instead of snatching it out of the air with his hands. The ball bounced loose. A backup running back named Marshall, a guy who has been one of the quiet heroes of this Browns offense over the last half of the season, alertly scooped it up and took it to the end zone. Touchdown Cleveland. But the takeaway from that play, the thing that every analyst and every commentator and every YouTube talking head is running with, is that Shedeur's throw was ugly, that it was lucky, that it barely counted. No. Stop it. The throw was a dot. The receiver let him down. Now, I want to spend some real time on Concepcion, because this situation is more complicated and more important than a single dropped pass at a May OTA practice. Concepcion was selected as the Browns' second first-round pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. The organization invested serious draft capital in this young man because they believe he has the physical tools, the route-running ability, and the explosive potential to be a legitimate number one receiver at the NFL level. Those beliefs may ultimately prove correct. But right now, in the spring of 2026, there is a very specific and very well-documented problem following Concepcion from his college tape into his professional career. And that problem is his hands. 9.3% drop rate in college. We have talked about this number before on this channel, and I am going to keep talking about it until either the problem gets corrected or it becomes impossible to ignore. 9.3% is not a blip. It is not a one-game anomaly that inflated a otherwise clean statistical profile. It is a persistent, recurring season-long pattern that scouts flagged, that analysts documented, and that the Browns were fully aware of when they made the pick. And the reason that number matters so much right now, the reason it carries so much weight in the context of this specific OTA moment, is because drop concerns are the kind of thing that either get corrected early in a player's development or they metastasize into a career-defining liability. There is very little middle ground. You either fix the hands or the hands fix your roster spot for you. And here's what I need Concepcion to understand, and I need his position coaches to understand, and frankly, I need the Browns organization to understand. The quarterback who is throwing him the football right now is a young man whose entire professional trajectory is being judged on a play-by-play basis. Every incompletion gets scrutinized. Every near interception gets added to a tracker. Every time the ball hits the ground when Shedeur Sanders is under center, the default assumption from certain corners of the media is that the quarterback failed, not the receiver, the quarterback. And that asymmetry, that fundamental unfairness in how the incompletions are being assigned, is something that every single person in that building needs to be actively working to correct. Because if Concepcion keeps letting catchable balls hit the turf, Shedeur Sanders is going to pay the price for it in the court of public opinion, even when the film clearly shows the throw was good. We've seen this movie before, and it did not end well. Jerry Jeudy. That name is going to haunt certain conversations in Cleveland for a long time, and rightfully so. Jeudy was supposed to be a dynamic playmaker, a receiver who could separate from coverage and create big plays in the passing game. And there were moments, real genuine moments, where you could see exactly what the scouting reports saw in him. But the drops were catastrophic. The moments when the game was on the line and you needed a receiver to be a professional and make a professional catch, Judy found ways to let the ball slip through his fingers. And those drops did not just hurt his own statistics, they created incompletions. They ended drives. They turned potential touchdowns into punts and potential first downs into third and longs. The damage of a dropped pass extends far beyond the single play. It disrupts rhythm, it erodes quarterback confidence, and it gives defensive coordinators one fewer thing to prepare for. Casey Concepcion, if you are watching this, and I know you're not, but somebody who knows somebody probably will see this eventually, please do not be another Jerry Jeudy. Please. Now let's talk about Skip Bayless, because he entered this conversation this week, and his perspective is actually more nuanced than people are giving him credit for. Bayless was asked directly whether he believes Deshaun Watson is going to beat out Shedeur Sanders for the starting quarterback job. And his answer, stripped of all the television performance and theatrical pausing, was essentially this. Watson at his peak was legitimate, absolutely elite, no question. But that was a long time ago, and the burden of proof should be on Watson. What has he done recently to justify being handed the job? That is actually a fair and reasonable question. Not just rhetorical, not just hot take fuel. A genuinely fair question that the Cleveland Browns organization should be asking itself every single morning when they drive into that facility. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about the Watson situation that keeps getting buried under the noise of the Shedeur drama. Nobody has seen evidence that the old Deshaun Watson is back. Nobody. There are reports of crisp mechanics in drill work. There are practice highlights of rollout completions and bootleg touchdowns in shorts. And those things are real. I'm not dismissing them. But drill work in May against your own teammates in a controlled practice environment is not the same thing as performing under competitive pressure in a live game situation. It has never been the same thing. It will never be the same thing. And the Cleveland Browns, a franchise with more than its share of hard lessons about the difference between practice performance and game performance, should know this better than anybody. What we are seeing from Watson in these OTAs is a man going through the motions of a comeback with technical efficiency. The footwork looks right, the arm is moving the way it's supposed to move, the bootleg rollouts are clean. And honestly, good for him. That's what recovery from a catastrophic injury is supposed to look like at this stage. But the analysts who looked at one specific drill, the receive, fake pitch, footwork, throw drill, and noted that Watson ran it with more conviction and precision than Shedeur did, are making a point that matters not because it tells us Watson is the better quarterback right now, but because it tells us Shedeur is leaving the door open when he should be slamming it shut. Every single drill, every single rep, every single opportunity to demonstrate the coachability and the professionalism and the relentless work ethic that separates the quarterbacks who win competition battles from the ones who lose them on the margins. None of those can be treated as optional. None of them can be treated as beneath Shedeur's talent level. You run the drill right every time. You sell the fake every time. You finish the footwork every time. Because the one clip where you don't is the clip that ends up in the analysis package that gets sent to the head coach's desk. Now, here's where I want to make a larger point about what is actually happening in this Browns quarterback situation, because I think there are two different conversations happening simultaneously, and they need to be separated. The first conversation is about football, about who can actually play at an NFL level right now, today, in 2026, with this roster. And on that question, purely on the football question, I believe Shedeur Sanders is the right answer. His arm talent is undeniable. His red zone efficiency even in practice is showing up. His ability to fit the ball into tight windows, as evidenced by the very throw that sparked all this discussion, is exactly the kind of skill that translates directly to NFL success. The fact that his receivers aren't catching the football is a supporting cast problem, not a quarterback problem. And when you look at the full picture of what Shedeur brings to this offense, compared to a Watson who has not played meaningful football in years and who is operating behind the physical limitations of a body that has been through two devastating injuries, the football answer seems relatively clear. The second conversation is about everything else, about money and contracts and organizational politics and the sunk cost psychology that has defined Cleveland's decision-making for years. About Jimmy Haslam looking at a $230 million investment and needing to feel like something, anything, was salvageable from it. About a front office that is acutely aware that a significant portion of their fan base resents Watson deeply and would celebrate almost anything that accelerated his exit from the building. About the PR calculus of naming a rookie the starter over a proven veteran, and all the narratives that decision opens the organization up to if things go wrong early in the season. That second conversation has nothing to do with football. It has everything to do with the kind of institutional self-protection that prevents good organizations from making great decisions. And the tragic part? The truly frustrating part for anyone who actually wants this Cleveland offense to be good is that those two conversations are being allowed to exist simultaneously inside the same building. The people watching the film are having the football conversation. The people in the executive suites are having the other conversation. And until those two conversations converge on the same answer, Shedeur Sanders is going to be fighting a battle on two fronts. He has to be better than Watson on the field, and he has to be undeniably better in a way that gives the front office no political cover to choose otherwise. Let me tell you what the receiver situation means for all of this, because I think it's the most underappreciated variable in the entire equation. When Deshaun Watson rolls out and completes a bootleg pass to a tight end in practice, that completion gets attributed to Watson. His accuracy, his timing, his football instincts. When Shedeur Sanders throws a perfect strike to Concepcion, and Concepcion drops it, the incompletion gets attributed to Shedeur. His turnover tendencies, his questionable decision-making, his college habits following him into the pros. That asymmetry is not fair. It is not logical, but it is real, and it is shaping the narrative around this competition in ways that Shedeur and his camp need to be aware of and actively working to counter. The only way to counter it is with completions that are so undeniably good, so obviously correct, that even the most motivated Watson defender cannot explain them away. The good news, and there is good news, I promise, is that Shedeur is showing flashes of exactly that. Beyond the Concepcion throw, there have been reports of sharp practice sessions, of Shedeur operating with the first-team offense and making the kind of reads and decisions that suggest his understanding of the NFL game is ahead of schedule. The touchdown, to Marshall, accidental in its final form but perfectly intentional in its conception, is a microcosm of what Shedeur brings. He puts the ball where it's supposed to go. The rest of the play sorted itself out, because the placement was right. That's all a quarterback can do. He cannot catch the ball for his receivers. He cannot manufacture completions when his targets are batting catchable passes into the air. What he can do is continue to throw with precision, continue to demonstrate the kind of red zone command that changes game outcomes, and continue to make it politically and professionally impossible for the Browns organization to start anyone else. Skip Bayless, of all people, said something that I think landed correctly this week. He said the team is probably behind Shedeur. The young guys in that locker room, the guys who are going to be running routes and blocking and making plays alongside whoever is under center, those guys see what's happening every day. They are not watching film packages put together for a front office presentation. They are watching the quarterback in real time, up close, making throws and making decisions and responding to adversity. And according to the general sense coming out of that locker room, the players believe in Shedeur Sanders. That matters. Locker room belief is not everything in a quarterback competition, but it is not nothing. When the team rallies around a signal caller, when the offensive line plays with more juice because they trust the man behind them, when receivers run harder routes because they believe the ball is going to be on time, all of that translates to better football. Chemistry is real, belief is real, and right now the belief appears to be in Shedeur's corner. So where does this leave us heading into the back half of OTAs and the approach of mandatory minicamp? It leaves us in exactly the position I expected we'd be in, which is a genuine competition that is being complicated by factors that have nothing to do with football, being played out in front of a media that has already decided its preferred narrative, involving a young quarterback who has every physical and intellectual tool required to succeed, but who needs his supporting cast to start doing their jobs. The receivers need to catch the football. Concepcion needs to trust his hands and stop trying to body catch bullets from a quarterback who is putting them in the right place. The organization needs to let the competition play out honestly, instead of leaking reports that shape public perception before the real evaluation is complete. And Shedeur Sanders needs to run every drill like his career depends on it. Because right now, in May of 2026, it does. The dot was thrown. It was a perfect dot. Now everybody around Shedeur Sanders needs to start catching up to the standard he's setting. If this video gave you clarity that the mainstream sports media isn't giving you, hit that like button right now and let YouTube know that real analysis still has an audience. Drop in the comments. Is the receiver situation in Cleveland a bigger problem than people are admitting? And is the organization rigging this competition or letting it play out honestly? I want your unfiltered takes down below. Subscribe to Dre Reports, hit the bell, because we are not waiting for the big outlets to tell us what to think. We do the homework. We pull the receipts. We give you the truth. Dre Fiverr, out.